I never thought this was how my life would turn out. A woman in her mid-40s, feeling more inconspicuous than ever, standing by herself in a lovely home. My spouse was absent all the time. Days turned into weeks while he traveled for work. Furthermore, his homecoming felt less like a reunion and more like a formality. We hardly exchanged more than casual chat. It had been years since we had shared intimacy. I maintained appearances by cooking, cleaning, and grinning at my neighbors, but on the inside, I was deteriorating. My husband informed me that he would be departing once more, this time for over a month, in the early spring. As usual, I pretended to comprehend and nodded. I didn't object. I didn't. I had come to terms with this existence. I believed I had, however. My stepson Aidan returned from spring break at college only 1 week after he left. Tall and courteous, he was 22 and had always maintained a respectful distance. Our relationship had always been a formal, quiet one, since I had been his parent since middle school. But now that he was a man, there was a shift in the way he gazed at me. At first, it wasn't improper, but it was different. His gaze seemed to linger a bit longer. His once casual praises suddenly seemed intimate. His voice was soft when he stated, "You look beautiful today," one morning in the kitchen. My heart skipped a beat, but I shrugged it off. Almost by accident, we began to spend more time together. He would sit next to me as I watched late-night TV, offer to help with groceries, and prepare supper with me. I wasn't blind, but I made an effort to ignore the mounting tension. Every time his hand touched mine, I sensed it. And each time he was a bit too close. We watched the sunset one evening while sitting on the balcony. He informed me that he respected my ability to keep the family together and my fortitude toward his father. I was unsure of how to react. It was the highest praise I had ever received. Not for years. His speech, kind yet honest, somehow broke through the barrier I had put up around myself. I saw more in him than just my stepson. I came across a man who was aware that I was still alive. I had trouble sleeping that night. I continued playing back our exchanges. I persuaded myself it was innocuous based on the way he looked at me and the fact that I didn't back down. But I knew in my heart that I was lying. This was more than loneliness, I realized. I could no longer deny that I had gone too far emotionally. I was uneasy when I saw him again the next morning because of his smile. Even though it was wrong, I was starting to want for that attention and that sense of belonging. I woke up for the first time in a long time, yet I was scared too. I had not taken any action. Not quite yet. But I was aware of my proximity. And I wasn't sure I'd be able to escape what was about to happen if something didn't stop me right away. Duty took place on a Thursday night. The air felt thicker than normal, and the house was silent. I had just finished dinner when the rain began to pour heavily and the electricity went off. The mood changed as there were no lights, no distractions, and simply candles for comfort. With 2 glasses of wine in his hands, Aidan entered the living room. He added, "Thought you could use this," with a soft smile. Despite my hesitation, I accepted the glass. The rain hammering against the glass was the only thing we could hear while we Saturday. My guard was lowered by the booze. Our discussion veered from recollections to feelings. He talked about how lost he had been lately, how happy he was to come home, and how safe he felt being with me. I listened, finding solace in the candor. He then said something that made me stop dead in my tracks. "You have no idea how amazing you are, do you?" He didn't avert his gaze as I stared at him in confusion. He went on, "You deserve someone who sees you. Someone who truly gives you a sense of life." My heart was racing. I didn't tell him that this was improper, even though I wanted to. Instead, I listened to what he had to say. I was famished for love and approval. And who was providing it didn't matter at that time. I admitted to him that I occasionally felt as though I was vanishing from this house and that no one was paying any attention to me anymore. I didn't pull away as he reached out and softly held my hand. It seemed so peaceful and natural, as if we had come here by accident rather than choice. He didn't touch hard. It wasn't hostile. It was heartfelt and compassionate. I didn't feel invisible for the first time in years. He wasn't only staring at me. They were supporting me and occupying the voids left by my husband's long-term absence. He bent in. I ought to have prevented him. I didn't. Slowly and tenderly, our lips met. Words could never express what that kiss did. It wasn't hurried or crazy. It was intense and filled with feelings that we had both suppressed. We sat in quiet when it was over, both of us aware that we had passed a line we couldn't go back. Without saying anything more, I got up, told him I had to go to bed, and left him sitting there. But there was no sleep. My heart pounded. My mind went haywire. I was aware that our actions were improper. It was more than a simple kiss. It was treachery, not just of my spouse, but of what I believed to be my values. Nevertheless, I didn't experience remorse for a while. Something within of me was touched, seen, and awoken in a way I had forgotten was possible. I was unable to describe it. Not that I wanted to. However, I was aware that nothing would be the same going forward. Something had changed within me that I would never be able to reverse. I avoided making eye contact the next morning. Nothing seemed the same, yet I walked about the kitchen as if nothing had changed. Aidan came in casually, but I could see that his attitude had changed. He was now calm and self-assured, as if he had crossed a boundary and wasn't sorry. He volunteered for breakfast assistance. I didn't glance up as I nodded. Although silent, the tension between us was evident. We kept the kiss to ourselves. Anything hung in the air like a secret too loud to ignore, yet neither of us mentioned anything. I repeatedly reminded myself that it was only a fleeting moment, a feeble error of judgment. However, I remained still as his hand touched mine once again. I felt my body respond as he reached for a dish while standing just behind me. I felt both excited and ashamed. Later that day, I saw that he was purposefully observing me rather than merely idly. He examined every element of me, including my motions and face, as if it were important. It was the most attention I had received in years. Not from anyone, not even my hubby, that it was incorrect. I was aware. However, I couldn't help but crave more of it. Aidan started to spend less time with his buddies and more time at home. He pretended to be close to me. Walks, errands, and movie evenings. Our discussions became more in-depth. He inquired about my early years, my aspirations, and the things I had given up over the years. I came to see how much of myself I had sacrificed for a marriage that offered me nothing in return. I made an effort to establish limits. I informed him that this was risky and irresponsible and that it couldn't go on. He nodded, listened, and even expressed regret. However, he murmured that he couldn't stop thinking about me when he discovered me by myself the following second. That a man who didn't even notice when I sobbed myself to sleep didn't deserve to abandon me. I felt like I was being stitched back together with each phrase. "You don't have to keep pretending," he remarked, touching my face one evening. "You're free to experience emotions once more." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. I said enough with the way I stared at him. Long ago, the emotional boundary had been crossed. It wasn't intended what happened next. It was unavoidable. I no longer recognized myself. I was a woman caught between loyalty and the desperate need to be desired, between desire and guilt. I reminded myself that I still had power and could put an end to this before it got out of hand. In actuality, though, I had already succumbed. Nevertheless, I was afraid of the repercussions, not just of being discovered, but also of what would occur if he departed again, when his vacation was up, and I found myself in this place alone myself once more. Is this me he would take with him? Or would I once more be left broken? This time, Aidan's sabbatical was ending due to an error I could never reverse, and the consequences of our actions started to weigh more heavily on us both. In his quiet times, I could see it. He gave me a glance but didn't say much. Our stillness felt heavier now for some reason. Guilty, but not intimate. As he began packing, I felt fragments of my frail world crumble with each folded garment. Yes, we had gone too far, but what now? We never discussed what might come next. I didn't ask, and he made no promises. I wanted to avoid delusions. I had lived long enough with a spouse who seldom paid attention to me, shrouded in a false sense of security. However, this was unique. It was real, unvarnished, powerful, and incorrect. It had to stop now. For the first time since everything started, he came to me uncertain the night before he left. He made no attempt to touch me. "I don't regret anything," he said, looking at me as if he wanted to say something but was unable to. Quietly, he said, "But I don't want to ruin your life either." Unable to answer, I nodded. My throat constricted. I couldn't tell if it was relief or heartache. When he departed the following morning, I watched him leave without a ceremony, standing at the door like a stranger. No promises, no farewells, just a brief moment. The silence in the home returned. However, it felt colder this time. After a few days, my spouse came back as if nothing had happened. He talked about business transactions over dinner and brought back mementos and anecdotes from meetings. I avoided his gaze, but he didn't notice. He was unaware of my hollowness. Only I could see that I had physically and emotionally given myself to someone else. I first believed that remorse would devour me. Instead, though, I experienced a deep grief. Not only for my actions, but also for the years I squandered feeling unnoticed. It wasn't only the kiss or the contact that was betrayed. In only 1 week, someone who wasn't even supposed to care had a clearer picture of me than my spouse had in years. Once, Aidan sent a brief text message that said, "Take care of yourself." I deleted it after staring at it for hours. I understood that we couldn't go on. I also realized that I couldn't return to the previous state of affairs. I was different. And I couldn't go back and undo that alteration. Ultimately, I found myself in a marriage that appeared solid on the outside but was utterly empty on the inside. While I bore the burden of decisions I couldn't undo, I lived every day next to a man who believed everything was wonderful. And perhaps the true penalty is to live with the truth in quiet while avoiding detection. I discovered that attention without commitment is only temptation, and love without attention is just habit. I lost a part of me somewhere in the middle that I will never